All right, guys. So today we're actually going to look at the volatility index. So if we see the VIX right here, we're making higher. We've actually formed a higher low. So I just want to kind of, we've been looking at the S&P 500. We've been looking at a lot of what's been going on in the markets, and I want to bring this perspective as well. As the VIX, is very. It's kind of like showing you the fear and greed of the market in general, right? So what I want to point out here, guys, is if we add the S&P 500 on, overlay it with the VIX, what do we have here? We had a massive spike in 2019, massive drop in the S&P 500, and then we started making lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, and the S&P 500 had a massive push up. Now, at the point we made the first higher low of the VIX, the S&P 500 started pushing down. And then we had here lower lows and lower highs, and the S&P was pushing up. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention, guys, because currently, if we look at the structure of the VIX, it is making a higher low. We've made a higher low here. If we break this high, we would put in a higher high and then continue all the way up to these areas right here. So the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention, because if we look at the VIX, we look at the S&P 500's market structure, we've made a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low, and we're going to look at the 10 versus 2 year. It does look like, some concerns for the S&P 500 as a whole. We're looking to actually make, break this high, which we've been saying, but if we're looking right now, we could have more of a pullback in the short term. So let's look at the 10 versus 2 years. So I'm going to pull that up. Once we uninvert from the yield, that's when the price and the quote unquote recession normally happens. So you can see right now we're getting close to uninverting. And when that happens, that's normally when a recession actually takes place. So currently, we haven't had that pullback in the markets yet. But let's just pull up the S&P again here for a new price scale. When we have that pullback, so you can see here, we had uninverted. When we uninverted, that's when we had our S&P 500 right here decrease in price. So right now, that's kind of what we're looking at, is we pull back all the way down here, and when we uninvert, that could be the S&P 500 actually making a lower low and having a steeper correction. So we want to just pay attention to this. It may not happen, but we want to keep these on our radar and just show all the probabilities that we think we can experience. The VIX making a higher low makes a lot of sense just because we've had the war, right? So we've had the war that has happened. So it makes perfect sense as why it's making higher lows. And if we look at gold as well, gold as well is making a massive bullish run, also because of the war that's happening, right? So my perspective, I'm still, when it comes to Bitcoin, still looking at this chart, and we're still in the accumulation phase, but doesn't mean we're not going to get any type of pullback. Just like in 2019, we did have the yield curve invert in 2019, and we had a massive pullback right here, right? We had this massive pullback over here. We had this pullback with COVID-19, but then we rallied up and made new highs, right? So doesn't mean that we're not gonna continue to head higher. I still do believe we're gonna make higher highs and higher lows and have this bull run after the halving, but at the same time, just want to consider that we could have a pullback. The VIX is moving up, and the last time the VIX moved up like that, last time the VIX was making higher highs and higher lows in this area is when Bitcoin and the S&P did have a pullback. So when we were making higher highs and higher lows right here, that's when we did have a pullback. And I'll overlay Bitcoin as well as the S&P 500. Price scale. So let's look at that, right? So we have Bitcoin and the S&P 500 as we were making higher highs and higher lows. You can see Bitcoin and the S&P 500 started heading down, right? So it's not outlandish to say that if the VIX starts putting in these higher highs and higher lows, we're going to actually have a steeper pullback in the price. There's nothing saying that won't happen. That's definitely a possibility. So we want to consider that while we're trading and investing, that we could actually be having a pullback. If we look at Nvidia, we've had this massive rally, and it looks like we may be in a distribution to head lower. So, you know, anything can happen right now, but you just want to consider these things as you're trading and investing. That S&P has had a massive rally, so next year we could have a pullback. Nothing wrong with that. If we look at the structure, now, like I said in the last video, we put in a new low. So unless we get above this high or above here and print a higher low, we're going to continue to head further lower in my point of view. So if we break this low, we're going to be heading lower. You know, we printed this bearish engulfing candle. We have 1 hour until it closes, and if it closes, there's a higher probability that the price is actually going to continue down, especially with these bearish engulfing candles. When you have engulfing candles against support and resistance, because there's so much volume in that, and there's only been about 7 or 8 stocks that's been carrying the S&P 500, guys. So if Nvidia's starting to cool down, if Google and all these other companies are starting to cool down, let's look over here. If all these other companies are starting to cool down, let's see Google on the, then what is going to push the price of the S&P up, right? We have, and you know, if we look at the divergence here, we have a divergence on Google as well. We have divergence showing weakening in price, so we could definitely head lower, you know. So let's look at this low right here at 137 to see if we get down to that level. But it's not crazy to say that we may have a correction even further with the S&P 500, because there's only been about 7 or 8 companies that have been pushing the price up, right? If we look at Nvidia, if we look at AMC and other coins that were in the meme, the craze of 21 and 22, these coins stocks are just completely dwindling, right? They're crashing, right, from $46 all the way down to $9. So you want to consider is like, hey, if these companies, these tech companies, aren't going to be pushing up the S&P 500, what will be pushing it up, right? So short term, short to midterm, we're anticipating more of a pullback, but that's okay, guys. The S&P 500 has increased in price 28% this year, so there's nothing wrong with getting a correction, right? There's nothing wrong. Now let's look at Tesla. Look at the Tesla, as well as Tesla's had a great run this year. It's had a wonderful run. It's up 170% this year, right? So Tesla's up 170% this year. But if we look at it right now, Tesla, to me, it looks like it's we may head lower, guys. We may head lower. It's just been in this massive consolidation phase from 2021. It's been in a massive consolidation phase. So you want to consider is that if we look at the whole chart of Tesla, let's look at the whole chart of Tesla. We had this run up here in price, consolidation. We've made a low. We've made a lower low comparative to this base that's here formed. So Tesla is just in a distribution phase, is what it looks like to me. It looks like Tesla's just distributing right now. So we've had a markup, we're distributing, and then a markdown phase. definitely something that I can see happening for the price of Tesla, right? So man, these are just market cycles. So if we want to identify where we are in the market cycle, well, let's look at this. We have accumulation over here. So the price is being accumulated. And then we have this markup phase right here. Price is marked up, right? So we're marking up the price of Tesla. We're marking up the price. And so two things can happen. Two things can happen. Either Tesla can continue moving up, and then we have another markup. Definitely something that can happen. Or we can have a markdown with Tesla, right? So what do I think? You know, Tesla is a company that's an innovative company. So over time, I do think it's going to be trending higher. My only concern is if we look at the structure, we formed this lower low right here. So we formed a lower low on the price action. So that's my only concern actually, is that for me to be comfortable saying, hey, we're going to head higher, I would love to see Tesla break above this high right here. This area right here, right? But right now it's actually looking more bearish than bullish. We've made a low, we're forming lower lows, we're forming lower highs, we made a lower low, and you know, for us to say, hey, we're going to be heading higher, well, we at least need to break this high right here. But until then, you know, Tesla can just make another lower low and continue to head further down, right? So it does look a bit more bearish for me, but hey, no one can predict the charts. But let's see what happens. So now, that being said, if Tesla and all these other companies are actually going to be pushing down, these are the companies that are holding up the S&P 500. So if they push down, S&P 500 is definitely going to have some sort of pullback, right? So I just want to consider that as we're trading and investing, right? And if we look at the USDT dominance, it has not broken this low, and if it breaks up, you know, Bitcoin can have a pullback. So these are just indicators outside of just reading the chart. You know, we look at the so we look at the So we look at the 10 versus 2, the VIX, you know, just so you guys can see exactly what we think is happening. And again, guys, the DXY on the weekly and monthly time frame is looking bullish, guys. It's the strongest it's ever been. It's the strongest it's ever been. You know, we look at the mortgage rates. Look at the mortgage rates, guys. It's climbing, right? So this looks like, hey, maybe you know, there's still a lot more pressure in the markets for the market to come down. So just consider that, right? Cost of borrowing is still high, so we just want to consider that while we are trading and investing. So and if we look at ETH too, guys, let's look at ETH on the monthly time frame. ETH on the monthly time frame looks bearish right here, right? So just want to consider, guys, what is going to happen in the markets. Anything can really happen, but ETH to me is looking bearish. We're making lower lows and lower highs, so yeah, I don't see us you know, unless we flip above here and break this, then we'll be heading higher. The only asset class out of cryptocurrency that's looking bullish is Bitcoin, in its consolidation zone right here is the only one that's looking bullish. And we made this breakout based on false information. So of Bitcoin actually saying that we're having a spot ETF, but you know, that was not true. So that's the only thing that I see right now in this market that's bullish in the cryptocurrency space, and maybe some altcoins, but NFTs are down a lot. Most things are down, but we are in the accumulation phase for the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. We're in the accumulation phase for Bitcoin. As long as money is going to be printed, Bitcoin is going to do well. After the halving, it's going to do even better, right? It's a scarce asset. But in this middle ground, we really need to just also pay attention of other factors that are playing in the market, because all markets are correlated. The S&P is very correlated. It's the top 500 companies, so we need to really pay attention to the S&P to make sure that, you know, we're on the right side of that trade, right? So just keep that into consideration, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share, and tune in next time for some more content. If you want me to review anything, let me know, whether it's stocks, cryptos, commodities, forex. I'm willing to do that, do a technical analysis breakdown, as well as if you want me to look into the company, I'm more than open to do that. So without further ado, enjoy your day, and I'll see you in the next one.